Do you think that we ended up with banks that are simply too big to manage and we have to find a way to make them simpler and smaller?
Good question. I think this failure of risk management is just a very powerful case for reform, for financial reform. The reforms we still have ahead and the reforms we've already put in place. The test of reform is not whether you can prevent banks from making mistakes, errors of judgment, risk management. That's going to happen. It's inevitable. The test of reform should be, do those mistakes put at risk the broader economy, the financial system, or the taxpayer? And the best way to prevent that from happening is to make sure that you force banks to hold more capital against risk, which we've done, to fund themselves more conservatively, to bring down leverage, and to make sure that the rest of the system, financial system, has better cushions against these kind of mistakes. And we have been very forceful and effective very early in how we managed in the broader financial rescue and trying to make sure we're forcing much more capital into the system early in that context. And that's good. But we are going to work very hard to ensure that these reforms are tough and effective, not just the Volcker Rule, but the broader complementary reforms on capital and liquidity on derivatives markets, again, so that when firms make a mistake, which is inevitable, those mistakes don't put at risk the broader fortunes, the broader health, the broader security of the economy as a whole.
So should we look at this as an example of the system working, that JPMorgan could lose $2 billion and its capital still has plenty of capital? Or is it an example of bad regulation and bad risk management that they shouldn't have been taking these kind of risks?
Well, it's definitely a risk management failure, as they've acknowledged. We've had four pretty serious tests of the American financial system, even after this crisis. You had a profoundly difficult, challenging shock from Europe, financial crisis in Europe. You had the failure of a pretty large financial institution in non-bank in MF Global. You had the debt limit trauma, where we actually saw money flow into the U.S. banking system because of confidence in the basic strength of the system. And you had this pretty significant risk management failure. And our system is much stronger than it was before the crisis, and credit and capital is growing again. But still, this points out how important it is that these reforms are strong enough and effective enough and they can meet that key test. Again, not to protect shareholders from losses, not to prevent the unpreventable in terms of mistakes and judgments, but to make sure when those mistakes happen and they're inevitable, that they're modest enough in size and the system as a whole can handle them. And we're going to work very hard to make sure that we meet that basic test.
Have you talked to Jamie Dimon about this yourself?
Not since the incident, but the Fed and the SEC and the other regulators, and we'll be part of this process, are going to take a very careful look at this incident, of course, and make sure that we review the implications of what that means for the design of these remaining rules. Again, not just the Volcker Rule, which is very important in this context, but the broader set of safeguards and reforms.